Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that the members of the United States Space Force are called Guardians? Learn that the motto for the Space Force is Semper Supra, or Latin for always above. Learn how the Space Force plays a key role in national security while supporting scientific discovery and technological innovation. Discover that the Space Force protects U.S. satellites, tracks objects in space, detects missile launches, develops new space technology, and works with partners such as NASA, the Air Force, intelligence agencies, private aerospace companies, and allied nations to keep space safe and secure.
Right now, like high above your head, completely invisible to the naked eye, there is a massive, and I mean incredibly high-stakes war of logistics taking place.
Oh, absolutely. And it never stops.
Right. I mean, the satellites that process your credit card at the grocery store, the GPS routing your maps on your phone, the early warning sensors scanning the globe for missile launches, they're all just spinning through this domain that is suddenly super crowded, contested, and, well, vulnerable.
And to protect it, the United States basically had to execute one of the most drastic military reorganizations in modern history, right?
Yeah.
Building a brand new branch from scratch.
Which is just wild to think about.
It's a massive logistical and bureaucratic mountain to climb because, we often look up at the night sky and just see quiet, still stars. But the reality is that the space domain is chaotic. It is literally the engine of our modern civilization. And right now, securing it is the ultimate challenge for national defense.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to really explore that ultimate high ground. We are looking at a unique stack of sources today that cover the modern militarization and administration of space, the actual nuts and bolts of how humanity is structurally organizing to defend the stars.
It's fascinating stuff.
But we are also looking at the foundational historical facts of its divine creation. So we are going to look at the mechanics of space warfare right alongside the divine architecture of the cosmos itself.
Because it is really the only way to truly grasp what is happening up there. I mean, to understand our future in space, you have to understand both the terrestrial infrastructure we are building to protect it and the fundamental truths of how it was created.
Exactly.
You just can't separate the domain from its origins.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because this journey takes us from the highly classified, fluorescent lit briefing rooms of the Pentagon all the way back to the factual genesis of the universe.
Right.
So before we can even begin to talk about where the Space Force operates or how they track a satellite traveling at 17,000 miles an hour, we need to understand the friction and the philosophy behind why this massive organization was built in the first place.
Yeah, let's set the timeline here, because the administrative birth of this branch actually happened very fast, relatively speaking. The official genesis kicks off on August 9th, 2018. That is when plans were formally announced for the Department of Defense to organize the sixth branch of the U.S. military, the United States Space Force, or USSF.
And that was a huge deal.
Huge. During a major speech at the Pentagon, then Vice President Mike Pence laid out the initial architecture, announcing the Space Development Agency. And that essentially combined the U.S. Space Command and a Space Operations Force under one roof.
I want to pause on the structure of that, actually, because the source material highlights a very specific quote from Pence. He stated that the Space Force would be, quote, equal to, but separate from, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard.
Right, equal but separate.
Which sounds like a really diplomatic way of announcing a massive bureaucratic earthquake. I mean, for decades, the Air Force essentially owned space, right?
Very much.
So
yeah.
ripping those assets, those budgets, and that authority away to create something equal but separate must have caused some serious structural friction.
Oh, it absolutely caused a reorganization of historic proportions because space was previously treated as like a secondary theater, a supporting cast member to air, land, and sea operations.
Oh, okay.
So elevating it to that equal but separate status meant legally acknowledging that space is its own distinct domain of warfare. It requires its own dedicated four-star leadership, its own congressional funding, and, most importantly, its own culture.
But to your point about friction, they had to build this branch while the mission was already ongoing, right?
Exactly. They couldn't just hit pause on national security to sort out the paperwork.
Which brings up a really fascinating detail that Pence mentioned. He noted that they weren't building this from scratch. They were utilizing an elite squad of service members drawn from other branches. He pointed out that across the Defense Department and the intelligence community, there were already tens of thousands of military personnel, civilians, and contractors operating these systems. They were already acting as the, quote, eyes and ears of America's warfighter.
Yeah, the talent was already there.
Right. I was reading this and thinking about the logistics. It sounds like they didn't just draft a bunch of rookies, you know. They
Right.
essentially assembled an all-star team from different existing leagues to form a completely new franchise.
I love that analogy. It captures the reality perfectly. You take the absolute best orbital mechanics, satellite operators, and intelligence analysts from the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army, and you just place them under a unified command.
Wow.
And what's fascinating here is the underlying strategic philosophy that forced this reorganization.
Hmm.
In that 2018 speech, Pence declared that peace only comes through strength. The United States realized that the space domain is the fundamental driver of modern American private industry development and revolutionary technologies. I mean, if our orbital assets are vulnerable to jamming, hacking, or kinetic attacks,
Everything stops.
exactly, our entire terrestrial way of life just grinds to a halt. You cannot maintain global peace without projecting strength in the domain that controls everything else.
And that philosophy moved from a Pentagon speech to hard reality pretty quickly, right?
Right.
On December 20th, 2020, when former President Donald J. Trump signed the National Defense Authorization Act at Joint Base Andrews,
Yep, I made it official.
with that signature, the United States Space Force officially became the sixth branch. But, I mean, legislation on a piece of paper doesn't give a military branch a soul.
No, it doesn't.
You need an identity, a culture, and fresh leadership to actually turn that legislation into a functioning defense force.
You need symbols that operators can actually rally behind. So on July 22nd, 2020, they established that visual culture by releasing the official motto and logo.
Right, I remember seeing that.
The motto is Semper Supra, which translates from Latin to always above.
Which operates on two levels, I think. Physically, they're literally always above the rest of the military in orbit. But it also sets this psychological standard of excellence, like an overarching vigilance.
Oh, for sure.
And the logo they released features this sharp, upward-pointing delta shape. According to our sources, that delta was intentionally chosen to honor the heritage of the U.S. Air Force and the Legacy Space Command.
It pays respect to the foundation while pointing straight up toward the new mission. But, symbols only matter if you have a new generation of leaders to wear them.
Exactly.
And that brings us to June 23rd, 2020, at the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado.
Okay, this is one of the most striking moments in the source material for me. Picture the scene. It is graduation day. You have this massive class of newly minted officers stepping onto the grounds.
It's a huge event.
Right. And out of that sea of cadets, just 86 were assigned to future space intelligence leadership roles. But within that specific group, only 3 lieutenants were commissioned directly into the United States Space Force.
Just 3.
Yeah. And as they walked out, they looked fundamentally different from everyone else. They were wearing these distinctive platinum sashes around their waists, which completely contrasted with the traditional gold sashes worn by the Air Force cadets.
The visual of those 3 individuals standing apart in platinum, it really represents the bleeding edge of this new military era.
Well, I want to push back slightly on the symbolism of that choice for a moment, because a platinum sash is a very deliberate departure, right?
It is.
In almost every human hierarchy, gold is universally recognized as the absolute standard for top-tier value. First place is always the gold medal, the gold standard.
Right. Gold is the peak.
So is choosing platinum just a simple administrative way to make sure these 3 kids stand out in a press photograph? Or does it symbolize how this new branch actually views the space domain itself? Like, is it an assertion that space is entirely separate and perhaps more precious or unprecedented than terrestrial warfare?
Oh, it is entirely about the nature of the domain they are stepping into. Establishing a new military branch isn't just about changing a fabric color so you look unique on camera.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Think about the metal itself. Platinum is physically rarer than gold. It is denser. It is highly resistant to extreme temperatures and corrosion. It basically operates and survives under incredibly high-stress environments.
Oh, wow. So it's a perfect match for space.
That is the exact definition of the space domain. Those sashes are a physical manifestation of a completely new mindset and military doctrine built from the ground up for a hostile vacuum.
And that aggressive high-stress mindset is really reflected in the official doctrine laid out by Air Force General John J. Raymond. As the commander, he stated that the USSF will compete, deter, and win from a position of strength, securing our way of life and our national security. I read that and immediately hit a mental roadblock, to be honest.
How so?
Well, compete, deter, and win makes perfect sense if you are talking about aircraft carriers or infantry battalions. But how do you actually compete and deter in a domain where no weapons are officially fired? We aren't launching torpedoes in low Earth orbit.
Not at all, and that is a crucial point for anyone trying to understand modern space defense. Winning in space right now is about orbital dominance through physics and the electromagnetic spectrum.
Okay, break that down for me.
It means positioning your satellites in optimal orbits while forcing adversaries to burn their precious fuel to get away from you. It involves electronic warfare like jamming a rival's communication signals or blinding their optical sensors with ground-based lasers.
Wow, without physically destroying anything?
Exactly, because you don't want to physically destroy the satellite and create a massive debris field that ruins the orbit for everyone. So deterrence in space is about proving to an adversary that you can instantly neutralize their orbital capabilities before they even think about launching an attack.
So the battlefield is entirely about data, positioning, and signals, which honestly leads to the most ironic part of this entire deep dive. We have the legislation, the platinum sashes, the doctrine of deterrence, but where does the Space Force actually go to work?
Right, it's not like they're commuting to the moon.
Exactly, because they aren't building barracks up there. Here's where it gets really interesting. For an organization dedicated to the heavens, the Space Force relies on an incredibly heavy, massive terrestrial footprint rooted right here in Colorado, California, and Florida.
Oh, absolutely.
It's essentially a massive terrestrial nervous system controlling the orbital muscles.
I agree completely. The command, control, and logistics required to maintain assets in space demand a staggering amount of concrete and radar dishes on Earth. Let's look at how that nervous system is geographically mapped out, starting with Colorado, which basically serves as the central brain for surveillance.
Right. Buckley Air Force Base in Colorado is a prime example. The sources note their garrison focuses on air ops, space-based missile warning, space surveillance, and space communications. Walk me through that. How does a base sitting in Colorado actually provide missile warning for the entire globe?
Well, Buckley manages these huge constellations of satellites equipped with highly sensitive infrared sensors. When an adversary anywhere on Earth ignites a ballistic missile, the rocket engine creates a massive heat signature.
Okay.
The satellites detect the infrared bloom in real time. They instantly beam the coordinates down to the radar dishes at Buckley, and operators there analyze the trajectory to warn our forces or allies before the missile even reaches the upper atmosphere.
That is just incredible. It is the literal realization of being the eyes and ears.
It really is.
Also in Colorado, you have the Peterson-Shriver Garrison, and this location supports a sprawling web of facilities. It connects Peterson, Schriever, New Boston Air Force Station in New Hampshire, Kena Point in Hawaii, all the way up to Thule Air Base in Greenland.
It's a massive network.
And critically, it supports the Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station, which serves as the alternate command center and training site for NORAD and U.S. Northcom. I hear those acronyms constantly in movies.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
What actually is U.S. Northcom, and why on earth do they need a base built inside of a mountain?
So U.S. Northcom is the United States Northern Command, and they're responsible for defending the homeland of North America. NORAD partners with Canada for aerospace warning and control. But as to why they operate inside Cheyenne Mountain, it's because space defense requires ultimate survivability.
Meaning they have to survive a direct attack.
Exactly. That facility is buried under 2,000 feet of solid granite. The buildings inside actually sit on massive industrial springs designed to absorb the seismic shock of a direct nuclear strike.
Wait, really? Giant springs?
Yeah, it's incredible engineering. It is hardened against electromagnetic pulses. If the worst-case scenario happens on Earth, the personnel inside Cheyenne Mountain can survive and continue commanding our military assets in space.
Wow. So Colorado handles the tracking, the surveillance, and the survival. But if you move out west to California, the mission shifts to engineering and launching.
Right.
Down in El Segundo, you have the Los Angeles Space Force Base, home to the Space and Missile Systems Center. The sources call it a center of excellence for military space systems. This is where the military interfaces directly with private aerospace engineers to actually design and purchase the next generation of orbital technology.
And once you design and build those advanced satellites in Los Angeles, you have to get them into orbit. And that happens just up the coast at Vandenberg Air Force Base in Lubbock, California. That's the home to the 30th Space Wing.
Yeah, the sources say Vandenberg supports West Coast launches for private industry, the Space Force, the Air Force, the DoD, and NASA. If you live anywhere near the California coast, you have likely seen these rockets streaking across the sky at sunset.
They're beautiful to watch.
But why launch from California instead of Florida? I mean, Florida's the famous one, right?
It comes down to orbital physics, actually. Vandenberg is geographically perfectly situated for launching payloads into what are called polar orbits.
Okay, what does that mean?
If you launch south from Vandenberg, out over the open Pacific Ocean, your rocket can enter an orbit that circles the Earth vertically from the North Pole to the South Pole.
Ah,
As the satellite loops vertically, the Earth rotates horizontally underneath it. This means over the course of a few days, a satellite in a polar orbit will eventually fly over every single square inch of the planet.
which is absolutely vital for global weather mapping and military reconnaissance,
Precisely.
which makes perfect sense for surveillance. But when we talk about the sheer volume of rockets leaving the atmosphere, all roads lead to Florida. You have the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station and Patrick Space Force Base, home of the 45th Space Wing and what they call the Eastern Range.
Yeah, that's the busy one.
Cape Canaveral features 3 active launch pads, and the operational tempo detailed in the sources is just staggering. In 2016, Patrick supported 23 major launches. By 2021, just 5 years later, they scaled up to 48 major launches.
Think about the logistics required to safely double your launch capacity in just 5 years. You're clearing civilian airspace, coordinating maritime traffic, fueling volatile rockets, and tracking the trajectories with massive eastern-facing radar network.
It's a huge undertaking.
And they launch from Florida because they're firing eastward over the Atlantic Ocean, utilizing the natural rotational speed of the Earth near the equator to help slingshot heavy communication satellites into higher orbits. The fact that the 45th Space Wing handles this exploding cooperation between private enterprise and the military without failure proves how robust this terrestrial nervous system really is.
Yeah, it really does. And we have spent this entire time dissecting how humanity is fighting to secure, engineer, and launch into the heavens. We see the mountain bunkers, the tracking radars, the platinum sashes. But our sources for this deep dive introduce a really profound shift in perspective here. They transition us away from the administrative reality of how we access space and demand that we look at the factual origins of the space itself.
A really important pivot.
The military is guarding this domain, but to truly understand the scope of what we are doing up there, we must acknowledge how it came to be in the first place.
Yes, the sources establish a fundamental structural reality regarding the environment the Space Force actually operates within. And that fact is that, under the direction of Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ created the heavens and the earth.
And the historical and scriptural record provided in our stack is completely explicit about this objective fact. In the book of Moses, chapter 2, verse 1, it reads, and I'll just quote this directly, "And it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Behold, I reveal unto you concerning this heaven and this earth, by mine only begotten I created these things, yea, in the beginning I created the heaven and the earth upon which thou standest."
It is a definitive statement of origin. I created the heaven. It completely reframes our entire relationship with the cosmos.
Right.
Furthermore, the sources clarify that this creation was not some random cosmic accident. The creation of heaven and earth is an integral part of Heavenly Father's plan of salvation. It's a highly designed environment with a very specific eternal purpose.
So, as you are listening to this right now, what does all this actually mean for you? Why is it important for us to know and understand the creation?
That's the real question.
When you step outside and look up into the night sky tonight, what do you think about this creation? Knowing the objective facts of its divine origin, placed right alongside the facts of our military's modern terrestrial nervous system, how does it shift your perspective? The sources specifically encourage you to take these questions and share your thoughts with a family member or a friend.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, acknowledging the divine creation of the heavens gives ultimate weight and context to humanity's actions today. It explains why we feel such an overwhelming innate drive to look upward, to explore the unknown, and to understand the mechanics of the stars.
Oh, absolutely.
And as we see with the massive logistical undertaking of the Space Force, it explains our deep-seated duty to protect it. We are not just launching metal into a cold, empty void. We are operating within a grand, intentional, divine architecture.
Let's retrace the incredible ground we've covered today. We started with the friction and rapid evolution of the U.S. Space Force, sparked by Mike Pence's 2018 announcement to build a branch equal to but separate from the old guard.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. We examined the birth of a new military culture defined by the Semper Supra motto, the upward-pointing delta, and those 3 lieutenants setting a new standard in their platinum sashes. We mapped out the vast, heavy terrestrial nervous system, from the infrared tracking sensors in mountain bunkers in Colorado to the polar engineering hubs of California, out to the rapidly firing equatorial launch pads in Florida.
Right.
And finally, we anchored every radar dish and rocket launch to the factual reality that this cosmos was created by Jesus Christ as an integral component of a divine plan of salvation. Our sources even point out that the official U.S. Space Force anthem now stands as a modern testament to humanity's ongoing journey into those very skies.
It is a journey that is accelerating every single day. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
Since we know the heavens were created as an integral part of the plan of salvation, and we now possess a rapidly expanding, highly advanced military force dedicated entirely to securing that domain, how will our physical technological expansion into space alter our spiritual relationship with the cosmos?
Oh, wow, that is a heavy thought.
As we deploy jamming systems and infrared radars to defend the heavens, might we actually be taking the very first steps into a new chapter of our own spiritual evolution?
That is definitely something to think about. From tracking missile signatures to understanding the divine mechanics of the stars, the ultimate high ground has never been more relevant. Thank you for taking this journey with us today. Keep looking up, stay curious, and keep seeking those aha moments. We will catch you on the next deep dive.
Thank you for joining us for this day in His story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in His story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.